Thank you for joining us for an exploration of managing arousal. So in this first video, we're going to see a protected contact greet that then transforms into semi-protected contact. So there's going to be another handler that comes from the left of your screen. So the handler that you see there is walking away from the fence where the greet is going to happen. You see that she's reinforcing any engagement with the handler with food, and that we're going to use food and gentle pressure on the leash to manage arousal for this example. And when we say gentle pressure, that means no yanking, that it is really just like that, and that the dog kind of gently comes back, that there's no sense of a correction or anything, that the dog just feels the presence and then is reinforced for re-engaging with the handler. So once the two dogs are in proximity, we see that we're walking up in parallel, allowing them to sniff. Notice where the handlers are positioning themselves so that if they want to move the dogs away from each other, that they're moving them in an opposite direction. And then just notice how food is being used to manage the dogs in this situation. We're now going to be moving from protected contact to semi-protected contact. So again, the handler with the dog that you just saw leaving the screen is moving away from the gate so that the handler with a gray and white dog can move in. And so then we're assessing again whether or not these two dogs would like to meet each other. And notice that we are not forcing the interaction, following the dogs, and also not allowing them to go in too fast. So you notice that there's some pressure on the leash, kind of pulling back, slowing down, and then also notice how the direction that we are in relation to each other, so that if we do need to gently guide, so again it's just using a consistent amount of leash pressure to guide the dog to a direction away if we see things getting a little bit too tense. So we're not yanking back on the leash, but we're keeping the dog safe. So there was a little bit of tension, and we wanted to be able to pull them away. And so you notice how that handler is just using consistent pressure, waiting for the dog to respond to her and ready with treats. And the other handler, which is me, moving my dog away, not allowing her to go and sniff that same spot, because we don't know how these dogs are with each other quite yet. So by using, and this, we can use this in this instance because there's quite a bit of space, so that we can move the dogs around. If we don't have very much space to do the greet between the dogs, then we're in this sort of situation. So this is at a different shelter, smaller space to do the greets. So now we're using enrichment as a way of slowing down. We don't have space, so we can't create a ton of distance, but we can reduce the arousal by encouraging the dog to engage with food stations that are away from the fence. So a couple of things that I want you to notice about this setup is how far away all of the enrichment stations are from that other fence. And then this is an example of using enrichment in order to help a dog acclimate to the space. So this dog, when she came into the yard, was quite fearful of people. So then we started to get the enrichment stations out, and so we're using that head to ground as a way of managing her arousal, and then also a little bit of counter conditioning, right? So she's getting food in the presence of people. And you'll see that we're going to ask all of the people to back up a considerable amount and move away from her. But we're just using this little circle of you keep your head down, you keep getting fed, and then over time, you'll see that she gains a little bit more confidence, feels a little bit better. So we're seeing, quite a bit of a roached back here, some active avoidance from people. We saw some, considerable fear-based signals from her where she was sort of low to the ground. And this is a really great strategy for giving her a little bit of acclimation to the space. And notice that as I'm putting the treats down, I'm waiting for her to, making sure that she's not looking at me when I'm approaching, that I approach and move the items when she's focused on one, so that that I'm not putting any social pressure on her. I will note that this video is sped up a bit. This was I think about a 7 or 8 minute session. So we just increased the speed so that you could see the progression of how to help her acclimate kind of further out from the space and what that looked like. This does require 2 handlers though. So one person to kind of move and separate out so that she can gain a little bit more comfort over time with this scenario. And then you see that she's getting into it a little bit more. So she's relaxing a little bit. So we see a little bit of relaxation in her musculature. So then we're seeing that she's now, almost even approached me, where she was worried before if I was coming anywhere near her. Now she's like, oh, hey, how's it going? So it's, a nice shift in how she's feeling. And then as a result of that, then the other handler, Yona, dropped the leash and is just kind of encouraging her. So, and you saw that she went to the person who was holding the camera. And so this is a really nice way of both, so when she came into the yard, it was a lot of anxious arousal, fear-based behaviors, kind of like jumping up, then looking, then dropping to the ground, kind of afraid. And then you see this real change in the topography of her behavior, where she looks much more relaxed and engaged.